welcome to our first Alvarez and Marcel Private Client and Family Office podcast. In this podcast, we will navigate the complexities of family offices, private clients in the Middle East region. We discuss the challenges and opportunities that these clients face. We talk about their structures, we talk about tax aspects. A lot to talk about. Today I'm joined by my colleagues Tiago Marquez and Jihad Rabah. And in a moment they will introduce themselves. My name is Tim Dopmeijer and I'm a senior director in A&M's tax team based in Dubai. I have been in the region for over 10 years, so I have seen quite a few things relating to tax and as well as relating to families and private wealth. Jihad, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Thank you, Tim. My name is Jihad Rabah. I'm in the region for the last 25 years. I'm a director with A&M Infra. I've dealt with a lot of family businesses during my previous life, and I guess we're going to have a very good discussion about family business, the culture, and how the family will have family businesses can have a better future and can have a continuity for a longer time.
Yeah. Tiago?
Thank you, Tim. I'm Tiago Marques. I'm a manager in our tax practice in Alvarez and Marçal. I've been in the region for 2 years now. I've been working with private clients and family businesses for about 8 years now. And I think that comes as a good timing for us to discuss the complexities of private clients and family businesses in the region, especially considering what is happening from a tax perspective and also from a general business perspective.
Absolutely. With corporate tax coming in, I think it's absolutely the right time to have this conversation today with you guys. So let me start off with my first question. And that one is actually for you, Jihad. Why do you think that family businesses are the backbone of the economy? How has that been developed, and what do you see in terms of trends there?
Actually, Tim, in the region, the family business plays a critical role in the Middle East economy due to several factors. Some of them is the cultural significance. The family ties and relationship are deeply embedded in the Middle Eastern culture, fostering trust and loyalty within business operations. They have diverse sector engagement. We can see that most of the family businesses here in the region, they are not in one business. They have so many businesses. So many family businesses have successfully adapted to changing market conditions, because the market like 40 years ago is totally different than the market right now. So they are leveraging on the local knowledge and the relationship within the community they are operating with.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Tiago, in businesses owned by families are much more here than commercial enterprises, right? Can you talk a little bit about the cultural aspect, the leadership aspect, the governance aspect perhaps, and the values?
No, of course, and I think it's going on with what Jihad mentioned. The family businesses in the region are very critical, and it's a region where they were able to create a very good balance between tradition and modernity. Tradition has played a significant role for the businesses and the families here for a long time, and they've been able to keep true to their roots while growing and adapting throughout the challenges in the economy. They're keeping that balance in place allows them to grow and to adapt better to the situations. And Tim, you had an experience with an in-house role in a large corporation. How do you think that helps you navigate also this understanding for families being on the other side, and the difference between a stakeholder that is a family versus one that is a institutional stakeholder?
Yeah, let me explain it a little bit. Right now we are helping families navigating these complexities. what we try to do is we try to give solutions which are suitable for the family. So not only the answer from the textbook, but we also think about, wait, what would this mean in practice for the family? So when I was an in-house tax director in a company, I was always looking for an advisor that really understood the impact of the advice. Not only give the advice that works best on paper, but is it really achievable? Is it meeting the values? Is it meeting the other commercial objectives that you have in mind? So really someone that is not only giving the answer to the question, but also thinks about what are the consequences and what does it mean, and is this a sustainable long-term solution, and is this meeting the objective of all the stakeholders? Yeah. So when I was in-house, that's were the things that I was looking out for. Jihad, back to you. When you think about private clients and if you see what's happening in the market, where do you see that the action is? In which industries, asset classes? What are they looking at? What's on their mind at the moment?
Actually, there in the region, there are several key industries present investment opportunities for families. Most of the families, they are involved in real estate, so this is goes without saying. And we are seeing a lot of increase in population in the region, so that will lead to additional requirement for real estate, healthcare by default, because there is an increasing demand for healthcare services and innovation in healthcare. Renewable energy. It's a key industry. Future businesses can take as well digital economy, cryptocurrency, blockchain, and similar businesses that will really create additional wealth for the family business who are already having the money in their accounts, and they just need more opportunity to invest and to diversify from the businesses they are doing as of now.
So before, the old, well-established families in the UAE and the Middle East, they all have their retail, real estate, exchange house, but now we see that being broadened into the digital economy.
Absolutely, yeah. That's correct.
Is that also what you are seeing, Thiago? And can you also add your perspective on this point?
No, of course. And I think that you're absolutely right, and Jihad on his comment on the new market and on the new trends. And we see that when we see the difference or the evolution between generations. We might see the next generation, the younger generation, coming into and be more of an expert in such sectors like crypto, the dematerialized economy, blockchain, and even on opportunities that are coming up within the UAE or the region, such as casinos or gambling, which are now coming in. So those are interesting markets for the region, and the newer, more recent markets, they have an opportunity and a growth for wealth very significant, especially for next generations, which are more keen and more interested in those sectors.
And to add to what Thiago has mentioned, I guess there are a lot of PPP opportunities in the market. The public sector now, they are starting valuing the private sector in involvement in infrastructure projects in the region. So this will create a lot of opportunities, especially that the public sector now, they recognize that they need to have deals that can suit the private sector requirement to encourage them to start working on with the public sector and engagement in PPP format.
That's exciting.
This comes in with the idea for a family office or a family business where it comes to a certain kind of growth. It evolved naturally into a more kind of a investment company where it can have a more opportunistic sense of investment, keeping true to what it was the family's root in the business, but going and search for additional opportunities that show and give good amounts of wealth for the family and to continue growing.
100%, yeah. If you think about, if you take a step back and we think about the challenges and opportunities of family wealth, family offices, Jihad, would you like to explore that with us? For example, inheritance, governance structures.
Absolutely.
How is that developing, and are those indeed challenges or opportunities? How should we think about it?
Actually, so far till date, this is one of the top challenges that the family business are encountering, because till date, most of the family business, they are at the first generation level, so they didn't face the wave yet. So most of the challenges goes into governance structure. The absence of the governance structure is really affecting the family business. They don't have a formal governance framework. You have the succession planning, which is very essential, and it really have a big impact on the family business continuity after the first generation. You have the conflict resolution for sure between the family members, and the lack of professionalism between the family when they are growing, because still the emotion between the family and the relationship can have a huge impact on the professional level. Like if you're having a new partners or you're going into a new business, the family members will play a big role in the decision making. So it's those part of the challenges in the absence of the governance will have a huge impact on the future of the family business.
Absolutely.
100%.
So we are now living in exciting times, that's for sure. But in the next decades, we will have what some people call the great wealth transfer, right? The wealth is being transferred from, the so-called baby boomers to the next generation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Looking at you, Tiago. So what do you see as is the significance of that, and how is that going to happen? What's your expectation?
I mean, like you said, Tim, it's exciting times for sure. And when we think about the great generational wealth transfer, we talk about trillions of dollars, and that's a significant number when you consider that's going to change hands, and it's most of the times changing hands from one individual, be it a patriarch or a matriarch, to several, the siblings or the children of the matriarch or the patriarch, and that's a big challenge to consider for a family, and they need to think on what will be the proper structure and flow from that wealth into the next generation, how it will be taken care of by that family and the new generation, how will they grow it and manage it. So that's a lot of concern for those individuals to think on how to plan first, how to receive it, then how to manage it and how to grow it, with the ultimate goal of passing it on again to the following generation.
Perhaps there are some representatives of families or family members listening to our podcast today. So what would be your practical advice to them? How can they prepare for this generation shift, so to say?
I mean, the most important part is for the family themselves to actually realize that will happen. And that is something that not often families are aware of, and they prefer not to think of a life event as an actual something that is inevitable. Yeah. And so they just need to realize that we're not going to live forever, and that something can happen throughout the way. And the sooner anyone prepares for it, the better it is for when that life event comes. And it's all about prevention and planning rather than remediation down the line.
Most of the people, they delay this structuring, they delay this governance, because as Tiago mentioned, they don't believe that this life event will happen.
And like Jihad was saying, to complement there, is the grooming and the training and the education for the next generation. It's pivotal for a family business to endure within the family. Yeah. It cannot be expected that someone will excel as the leader of the family or end the family business just by in himself. There's a significant role that the person itself needs to take on and to learn and to educate himself on what is the family and the family business. And that is also a role that comes from the existing patriarch or matriarch, those that are taking charge and control, that can help the next generation come into power slowly and gradually to understand it better. Yeah. And I think that for that, there's one thing that's very important, like Jihad was saying, that if we were to take a snapshot of the region and family business now, how many of them would be properly prepared for this? Most likely not a lot, but there's from the private sector, also from the public sector, there's a push in the initiatives in this front to help the family businesses within the UAE and KSA, for instance, with experiences from the Dubai chambers with the Family Wealth Centers, I mean the DIFC. We also got the National Center for Family Businesses helping in KSA and raising the awareness of the significance and the importance of proper family governance and structuring within a family business and a family is critical for us to try and combat those statistics that you're saying, Tim, which are 100% correct. On less than 5% of the family businesses survive past the third generation. So what we can do is first and foremost raise awareness and educate the families that they need to embark on this journey, and then help them and guide them throughout the process.
So in summary, identify the next generation. Who wants to take a part in the business? Who prefers perhaps to stay on the sidelines? And then I look at you, Thiago. We have seen the introduction of corporate tax here recently. Yep. Different types of businesses have been dealing with it in different ways. But how has that been perceived and received by family businesses? How have they been dealing with introduction of corporate tax, for example? And perhaps you can also talk a little bit about the wider changes that have been faced by family-owned businesses.
No, of course, and like you said, the introduction of corporate tax is definitely a game changer in the country, and it's going to be a game changer within the region when other countries also go that route or change their existing corporate tax systems into something similar to the one in the UAE. And it is a game changer because it's simply a factor that family businesses and families, they did not have to consider until last year. And then it became a reality, and a fast reality. And structures and businesses needed to be adapted to consider corporate tax. And that came as at least a 9% charge over their potential profits. Several nuances there, as we all know. We hear about all of it. But considering 9% over what was the year before zero, and no concern on other rules, comes as a big factor for families. Yeah. And that also creates the distinctions that we have within free zones and non-free zones, where everyone had for instance, a company that holds every asset of the family. Yeah. Be it personal, be it business, everything could be tangled together. And with corporate tax, families actually needed to think of their existing structures, their existing companies, if they were fit for purpose for corporate tax. So it's not I would say that the families would not be ready for corporate tax, but maybe, Tim, you can also share a bit of your experience with VAT. Yeah. And if you think that, if you see any similarity between what we faced with corporate tax when VAT came into play into the UAE.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'm thinking back. It's already 6 years or so. Time is going so fast. But I was in the region and I was doing actually a VAT implementation when I was in house. The consensus in the wider UAE marketplace was that VAT, it has been announced in the newspaper, but is it really going to happen? Yeah. So for a very long time, people were believing it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They have announced it, but they will retract it again. They don't need the revenue. Then when I say they mean the government. Oil is going okay. It goes always with up and downs, but we have the revenue from resources. So we are in this fortunate area of the world where we don't need tax, and there was never tax. So why would there be VAT? But then it was happening, right? Yeah. And if I now think about that, so people were not expecting it then. It was announced, but it went ahead. And this time, with corporate tax, the community took it seriously from day one. That's, I think, the big difference. And thankfully, that also means that at least a number of our clients, they've taken it very seriously, and they have been working with us to map out what does it mean if there is tomorrow corporate tax? What does it mean for my structures? If I use my company as my ATM because I'm also the owner of the business, is that possible? What would that mean for for the taxable result of the entity. So those are the type of considerations that we are fortunate that we can work through with our clients.
Exactly. Yeah.
Long story short, at least they take it very seriously now, and
True.
there's
I think
still a lot
that-
of work to be done.
Yeah.
But I think we are on a better path than we were during the VAT days.
And I think that comes also into consideration when we think of tax structuring. Was a concept that was not part of the UAE before VAT, and with VAT even in a very little amount, and with the UAE corporate tax becomes something very important on how to look at corporate tax, your business, and how one can fit in the other in an optimal way.
Yeah.
And how can you make it so that the flows of money that was generated in the business can flow through over it properly and then upwards to the family. And then structuring within the UAE became very, very important. And we see that for general family business, but also for the personal assets. And we see even the relevance that families and family businesses have in the UAE when the UAE corporate tax includes specific rules on family foundations, for instance,
Yeah.
which is a broad concept, not just for foundations, but also trusts, which are valid and good mechanisms to protect the family and to ensure succession planning for their personal assets.
Yeah.
And on the tax structuring as well, Tim, for you, a follow-up question on the introduction of corporate tax continued the path that we first saw with VAT on the tax function for companies. Have you seen a growth in that awareness for companies that tax function is something that the company actually needs and not something that a finance department can cover?
Now we're getting an extra tax to deal with. So we had VAT that's now in a pretty much steady state for a lot of companies and a lot of our clients. Now we have corporate tax. We also have transfer pricing. We have CBCR. If you go over a certain revenue threshold of 750 million euros, then you might also be in Pillar 2. Yeah. So those are difficult topics to navigate. So I think that most businesses of a certain size would do themselves a favor if they have a dedicated tax person. The tax person is not expected to do everything him or herself, but should be able to navigate. So what are the key hurdles? Yeah. What should be the priority on the tax agenda? What does it mean if you go international expansion? What should you think about from a tax perspective? So I think increasingly tax is going to the agenda of the principals of the families and of the businesses. Yeah. Thiago, back to you. What do you think are how should family-owned business think about inheritance tax, those type of taxes which are more relevant to family-owned business than, for example, a corporate?
Yeah, no, I mean, like we were saying, that the succession planning is a vital part of it. And there's a part of succession planning which is to ensure who gets what and how, but then is not a concern that we have in the region for the time being, but families in the region have significant wealth. And that significant wealth often translates into assets that are in other parts of the world, and namely in countries that have, in fact, inheritance tax or gift tax. And that can come as a hefty bill for the next generation when they inherit a certain type of asset. And that can be real estate, as can be shares, as can be just cash. It's very intricate to deal with, and especially if we have multiple countries into play, it can be a very burdensome task to take on. And that's where tax structuring can also come into play and help make it a more efficient and streamlined.
So that brings us actually to the last section of this podcast, and that is the practical tips, right? So I think inheritance tax planning should definitely be on that list.
100%, yeah.
Now, another one that you just mentioned, which I find interesting, is the formalization of governance structures. And Jihad, can you perhaps share what could be a good approach to deal with this topic, practically speaking?
Practically speaking, I will just say 3 advices. All family business should have clear governance, clear framework, a clear succession plan,
Yeah, the downside risk is too big, right?
Absolutely.
If you get this
It's
wrong,
a huge,
it can cost you
it's
your
a
business.
huge, absolutely. It can cost your business. And there are so many examples.
Yeah, so it's good for the business,
Absolutely.
but clarity is also good for the family, because then at least everybody knows what his expectations are, or what expectations are of this person towards the business, and also between the family members.
Exactly.
So that
100%.
can also save a fight or two in the family itself.
Absolutely, 100%.
And the last one that I had on my list as something that should be considered as an opportunity or a pragmatic way of dealing with it is tax planning and structuring. We already touched upon it a little bit. What are the utmost important points around tax planning and tax structuring? And I'm looking at you, Tiago, for this question.
No, of course. So tax planning is one we need to take a taboo out of the way, which is tax planning does not mean a bad thing. It's actually a good and sound thing for any business or any family to endure and to take on. And it's very important for a family to be aware of what is their footprint of their business, of their wealth, in what countries are they present. Are they good and prepared from a tax perspective and efficient for that or not? Are they availing all of the tax benefits that they might have at their disposal? All of the credits? Are the flows of cash going from one side of the business to the other optimal? Do you have any leakage? Have you considered on how the flow of money can go from the business to the family? Yeah. Is the family prepared on their personal side for a inheritance scenario or a gift scenario? Yeah. Have you taken into consideration the tax on your daily life? And then one thing which is also very important here in the region, which is philanthropy and charity. There are so many benefits and often tax benefits and credits available for that specific area, and our families being made aware of them and taking advantage of them. So I would say more questions to intrigue our audience.
Absolutely. One thing I want to add there around tax planning and tax structuring is that, of course, you cannot do everything, right? There are boundaries. What is sustainable tax planning and sustainable tax structuring? But especially, or perhaps only, if whatever you want to do from a tax perspective aligns with your commercial drivers and your commercial plans, then choosing what is the optimal way from a tax perspective is often possible. Yeah. So I think here it's a recommendation also for the audience to get in touch with your advisor. I think actually that's a good point to conclude the podcast. It was absolute pleasure today to have you guys here on the podcast with me. This is the A&M Middle East podcast about family planning, family tax considerations and other consideration developments. I hope it was inspiring for the audience as much as it was for us, because I had a lot of fun doing this with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tim.